morning, fellow students, faculty, staff, parents, and veterans, and welcome to our Middle School Memorial Day observance. Before we ask you to stand for our national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to share these thoughts with you. We see our nation's flag every day, at our school, hung with pride on homes, draped from bridge railings, and fluttering from antennas of speeding cars. We see others lying broken, forgotten, or abandoned along our streets and highways, adorning fashionable mugs, t-shirts, pillows, and an array of tawdry items for sale. And still, there are others, streaming behind Humvees on village streets, rocky slopes, vast deserts, or wherever American men and women are serving our country and protecting us, or being ripped apart and set ablaze on TV news and across the internet, or serving as stage scenery for speechmakers seeking office. But for today, let our images of our flag be of those worn proudly on the shoulders of America's sons and daughters who stand in harm's way on our behalf, or those draping coffins on freshly loaded planes, or one raised by desperate Marines on Iwo Jima, or above the blasted earth that was the World Trade Center, or folded into triangles and handed to widowed spouses and orphaned children, or flying over rolling greens around the globe, where white stones mark the resting places of American dead who died far from home.
A thoughtful mind, when it sees the nation's flag, sees not the flag only, but the nation itself. And whatever it may be, its symbols, its insignia, one reads chiefly in the flag. The government, the principles, the truths, and the history which belongs to the nation that sets it forth. The original version of the Pledge of Allegiance was first published in the September 8, 1892 issue of Youth's Companion, a weekly magazine then published in Boston. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand for the presentation of the colors, presented by the Haverhill High School Marine Corps Junior ROTC, and remain standing for our national anthem, performed by Sonia Morin, after which we shall recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, turn.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Mr. Felt, a retired Masco teacher, veteran, Marine, and the author of many of the pieces you will hear today, will now read Their Stories Should Be Told.
Their stories should be told. Although today is a somber day for many of us, it need not be a sorrowful one. Today we may allow ourselves to feel proud, not for having come to this observance, but for being kin, neighbors, and citizens of the same nation that bred, raised, and provided us such people who would take upon themselves the burden of protecting people whom they would never meet, never see, and would never know. Their stories should be told, taught in schools, spoken of at dinner, heard and seen on all media. Everyone should know what the red poppies symbolize and why they are worn by so many, or so few, depending upon where you live, how you were raised, what you have learned, what you have come to respect and appreciate, or not. We cannot glorify these fallen to any greater extent than that which they themselves have already attained through their sacrifice. Their gift to us is eternal. We are free because of what they did and what they stood for. In turn, we must strive to preserve all that we have been given because of them, and for their memories. So we shall honor them and their sacrifice and remember them on this day.
Memorial Day is much more than a 3-day weekend that marks the beginning of summer. To many people, especially the nation's thousands of veterans and their families, this day, which has a history of reaching back to the Civil War, is an important reminder of those who died while serving our country. We ask that you reflect upon this during a moment of meditation.
Since Abraham Lincoln first presented his address on the then recent battlefield near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on November 19, 1863, while the Civil War still raged, this moving piece has been recited and quoted throughout our history. For many years, it was part of traditional Memorial Day services, often performed by school children who had committed it to memory. We ask Noemia Azevedo to recite Mr. Lincoln's address for us now.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and so dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this nation might live. We are met on it is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work for which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is for us, rather, to be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth.
It is fitting today.
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we won't be ashamed. To the tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight.
It is fitting today. It is fitting today that we remember with reverence the sacrifice of those American men and women who lost their lives in service to our country. Our presence here on this day, in this place of tribute and respect, honors the fallen and their families. It allows us to bear a portion of the grief and heartache of those who must endure war's burdens every day. If we can accept and shoulder that load, even only once a year, we strengthen and become part of the chain that reaches from Shiloh to Saigon, Korea to Kabul, and from our generation to the next. For all those who came home, we are grateful.
When America reluctantly entered World War I, it did so to fight the war for democracy. The fighting and carnage was so terrible that it was then called the War to End All Wars. No one could imagine our ever doing such a thing to ourselves again. For a little over 2 decades, it was known as the Great War, until the next one came along. Emma Shee and Alina Masag will now introduce and read what is perhaps the most famous poem from the First World War.
Since World War I, Memorial Day has also been called Poppy Day. Volunteers sell small, red, artificial flowers to raise funds for disabled veterans. You may have noticed that many of us are wearing them at this observance. Flanders Field is a United States military cemetery in Belgium, where 368 American soldiers who died in World War I are buried. The bright red poppies that grow there became a symbol of those honored on Memorial Day. Canadian John McCrae, a physician, soldier, and poet, wrote of them in his famous poem, In Flanders Fields.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
We, gathered in this assembly, are the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of those who fought the Second War for Democracy, when the entire globe was engulfed in the turmoil of World War II. They answered the call. For good or ill, their victory plunged our country into a new international role. Nearly all that we are and have today was kept safe for us by them. Ms. Malinowski will now read one writer's memory of Memorial Days with that generation.
A small town's green on Memorial Day, before the barbecues and the sales. There was no school, once, whenever that day may fall, and gathered at the ancient drilling ground at the base of the old bronze soldier, himself green from a century of standing. Children once came in their clean white shirts to recite and sing and practice the sacrifice of the men they had never known, whose names were cast in bronze or etched in stone. Lincoln's speech and Flanders' warning set a somber tone. Men in musty uniforms, our fathers, our friends, stood in awkward ranks and nodded while names were read. A band would play some gentle songs, and gold-starred mothers wept. Rifles fired the honor salute, and startled by the cruel crackling, the people jumped. And as always, a baby cried. Dogs, happy in the crowd before, cowered, knowing that it was all that terrible. Our mailman, hard to know in his old dress greens, wore well-shined boots that he'd worn to France that awful day in June. Mr. Eldritch, on 2 canes propped, wore 1 red poppy in his lapel and wheezed from gas-burned lungs. And in the silence, before the trumpet song, 2 teenage brothers in matching ties each held their mother's hands. And when the distant trumpet echoed, it was more than some could bear. And men who had been brave before wept quietly, unashamed.
My grandparents' generation, now often referred to as the greatest generation, fought and struggled through World War II. They answered a call to fight and some to die in a great cause. But one generation starts out probably no greater than another. However, those persons upon whom are thrust great challenges or hardship and who rise to meet and overcome those adversities may attain greatness, or perhaps, even better, may leave a legacy that those who shall follow will recognize as great. The responsibility and proud burden of our generation, or any generation, should be to deal with whatever trials befall us and our nation in a manner our heirs will consider great, as we now regard those of the greatest generation. The men and women of that generation who fought to protect our country and to make the world safe from dictators and tyranny. Of those World War II veterans who still survive, more than 200 die every day. Those veterans served our country when it needed them and are especially in our hearts today.
A soldier's letter. Dear school, boy, girl, or teacher, be kind and read these few words for me, and speak to those whom I may not. For if you have this letter, well, then I am dead, and won't be back to roam amongst the fields and towns I knew, the ones that you know still. And let them know, please, that I might have been their teacher, friend, or father, had I made it home. And if I could have, I would have come to see them play, in peace, in safe, in some green childhood place. But my path lay elsewhere, and I'm glad that you and they could not be there to see me off to where I had to go. Just tell them I was funny, strong, and what I used to like. Gardens, dogs, a laughing girl, the shining moonlight, a starry night, a good meal with my family, the dull, gray pre-dawn light, and, well, anything you can think of, really anything at all, that will keep me in their hearts. Tell them all the things I might have, had I made it home.
"5 years after the end of World War II, Americans were once again called upon to fight for their country. More than 1.75 million answered that call.
Korea. The Pacific struggles of World War II left the Korean peninsula divided in a communist northern half and an American-occupied southern half. The Korean War began in 1950 when the Korean Communist Army crossed the 38th parallel and invaded non-communist South Korea. Although Korea itself was not strategically very important to the United States, the political atmosphere of the Cold War a decades-long struggle which pitted the United States and its allies against forces supported and supplied by the Soviet Union, created a hot war in Korea, where East battled West for political control of the region. Americans fought in Korea for 3 years. In 1953, an armistice was signed that ended the war, returning Korea to nearly the same divided status as before the war. Neither the war nor its outcome did much to lessen the era's Cold War tension or unite the two Koreas, which are still divided today. The United States Department of Defense reports that 54,246 American servicemen and women lost their lives during the Korean War. 994 were from Massachusetts. The Korean War has frequently been referred to as the Forgotten War. Not today, not here.
Veterans, stand up. Present. Arms. Order. Arms. Please sit.
Years ago, as a part of his Master Teachers Project in service to the Tri-Towns, Mr. Cobb gathered and compiled a collection of the names of those men and women from the Masco community who served in armed forces during World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. These plaques now hang in the main office foyer in the middle school office area. The seventh and final plaque also bears the photographs of 3 men, one from each of our towns, who died in service to our country. For more than 10 years, on the annual 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., Masconomet students and teachers brought back rubbings from the wall, which is the Vietnam War Memorial. This year, we again share some of the rubbings of the names of friends and family members from the Masco community who perished in that war.
seems little enough to do, to pause and think of them, those that gave all that they had, all that they were, and all that they would ever become.
Why do we gather like this? Read these pieces and honor these dead? It is our obligation to remember those who sacrificed for what was effortless for us, because we have been born into freedom. And an even greater duty is to pass on the true measure and love of that freedom to our children. When the people of my parents' generation were children, many of them believed there would never be a conventional battlefield again. The next war, they thought, would be a nuclear one, a scientific one, high-tech, fought by planes, computers, and rockets, detached, far from us and our daily lives. In some ways, this has become true. Drones seek out and attack our enemies. In real time, images from satellites and helmet-mounted cameras of our armed forces in battle, and we might be misled to think, perhaps, that we aren't at war. That war is for those people who choose careers that bring them to war. But the attack on our country, September 11th, 2001, brought war into our living rooms. We saw that war could come to us, ordinary people on our native soil. We learned a new lesson, a new fear, the terror of war. And still, we are ready to defend our nation and our allies. I say we are ready. Yet today, it's far too easy to forget. Our attention is elsewhere. Busy schedules, which shows to watch, the price of gas, an upcoming long weekend. I say we are ready. Even as you and I sit here safe and at ease this day in May, right now, this very moment, our sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, fathers, mothers, and friends bravely serve here and in distant lands, in peril of their lives, and for us and our nation. These men and women who serve each day to keep us safe are us. They aren't presidents or generals. They aren't members of Congress. They aren't Democrats or Republicans, conservatives or liberals. Governments don't go to wars. Our friends, families, neighbors, and fellow Americans go to wars. Some never come home.
The Vietnam War wounded our country. The deep scar it made on our nation still aches today. I was born during that war while men who are now my friends were fighting it. Tree Jackson is a poem written by a surviving Marine about just one of the over 58,000 soldiers who never came home from that war. He will always be 19, my friend Tree. Black, skinny, and too damn tall. A good gift made by flesh and blood Jacksons. Southern night, not as tough as other trees, couldn't stand. From Farmville, Carolina, a long haul to that moment in my arms, smiling lies and joking how white boys dance, all stiff, slow, and how he, back in the world, would steal our girls with just a smile or a laugh for the sake of our old times and friendship. I wish he could have stayed to like me. He was in such a hurry and tricked me. He left through the window in the back of his mind as I tried to patch the crimson buttonhole at his throat. Sly tree.
I hold here a rubbing of Tree Jackson's name, taken from the Vietnam War Memorial by Mr. Cobb on a Masco 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. He was someone's friend. He was someone's family.
For the brothers who ain't here, gone, taken from the struggle in a flash, forever 19, 20, or some other golden age, kept, young and sound, still in our hearts and in their photographs. Gettysburg, shades of gray, a dull brown trench in France, Normandy beaches in black and white, Korea, frozen white, the sepia Polaroids of Vietnam, and 2 bright digitals from rocky slopes in the Middle East. Never again to grace our homes or be our friends, to love us in return. Remembered today by us, but every day by those who loved them, but not often enough by those who sent them.
The lucky sister. I am a lucky sister, and so must be sister too, to all whose brothers did not come home, or their husbands, sons, wives, or daughters. We are a family, unmet, united, and compelled to share or suffer what pain or sorrow, gratitude or joy, whichever portion has fallen unto each for one another.
I hold here an American flag, raised and flown over Iraq by United States Marines, given to our school by another brother from another Masco family, a captain in the United States Marine Corps upon his return from his 2nd combat tour in Operation Enduring Freedom.
Veterans, left hand hook. Breathe in. March. Order. March. Reset.
During the American Civil War, a wounded commander of a Union brigade, General Daniel Butterfield, with his bugler's help, rewrote a bugle call known as Scott Tattoo to create taps. Today, whenever a man or woman is buried with military honors anywhere in the United States, the ceremony is concluded by firing 3 volleys of musketry over the grave, and sounding with the trumpet or bugle. Put out the lights, go to sleep, the command which the rendering of taps represents. There is something singularly beautiful and appropriate in the music of this wonderful call. Its strains are melancholy, yet full of rest and peace. Its echoes linger in the heart long after its tones have ceased to vibrate in the air. Although there are no official words to taps, here's the most popular first stanza. Day is done, gone the sun, from the hills, from the lake, from the sky. All is well, safely rest, God is nigh.
Attention, all military personnel, all details, detachments, all veterans, and other uniformed personnel. Prepare for the report of 3 volleys and the rendering and echoing of taps.
Veterans, hold in, hold. Present, arms. Order, march. Please be seated.
These heroes are dead. They died for liberty. They died for us. They are at rest. They sleep in the land they made free. Under the flag they rendered stainless. Under the solemn pines, the sad hemlocks, the tearful willows, the embracing vines. They sleep beneath the shadow of the clouds, careless alike of sunshine or storm, each in the windowless palace of rest. Earth may run red with other wars. They are at peace. In the midst of the battles, in the roar of conflicts, they found the serenity of death. I have one sentiment for soldiers living and dead: cheers for the living, tears for the dead.
Arlington, where is that red-haired boy who sat with me and laughed, who had great dreams he shared with me? Too fast did he grow to golden youth in soldier's clothes, who proudly smiled when he marched past. Where is he now? That red-haired boy, you ask, and want to know. Why, there has he gone, my freckled boy, just there in that garden of stones. He rests among new comrades now, all
in Soldiers Row.
Abraham Lincoln, after being serenaded at the White House near the end of the bitter struggle of the Civil War, said, "Human nature will not change. In any future great national trial compared with the men and women of this, we shall have as weak and as strong, as silly and as wise, as bad and as good."
We would like to thank you all for attending our ceremony today, with special thanks to all serving Armed Forces personnel and attendants. The Middleton American Legion Post 227, the Topsfield American Legion Post 255, the Boxford Veterans, the Salem VFW Post 1524, the Marine Corps League of Essex County Detachment 127, other veterans and veterans organizations from our 3 towns, the music department, its staff and musicians, Miss Megan Brady, our piper, and to those students, interns, and staff who volunteered to read, perform, or assist today and in the weeks before. In closing, we offer this.
Eulogy for a veteran. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I'm not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds and circle flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for paying such close attention today. It is time.